Excited to do this.
Okay, I'm just going to throw you in the deep end.
Let's go.
How rich are you?
Richness is a state of mind.
Uh-huh.
I feel very fortunate and lucky with all that life has given me, but I'm not going to give you a number.
Okay, fair. Amazing. Well, I think you have a very inspiring story. You grew up in Oman and you moved to California for college. You were on a visa and then you sold Teachable for how much?
A reported $250 million. I unfortunately can't confirm or deny it based on the terms of our acquisition, but that was reported.
That was reported.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And now you run Carry, which helps people save money, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Oman, very much like third culture. We were Indian people who never lived in India, grew up in Oman, immigrated to America when I was 17 with the idea that, like my dad always was like, the US is like where you can go and, achieve things. And so from being pretty young, I always knew I would come here. So yeah, I'm glad life has gone the way it has.
Amazing. And did you move with your family, you're saying?
So I moved here, no relatives, no family. Basically, my first time in America was Orlando, Disneyland. The second time in America was my first day of college. So it was a bit of a culture shock. I was 17 years old, had never really lived away from home.
Yeah.
But very early on, I felt at home in California just because I grew up in the Indian school system, which is very strict. You had to do all these crazy things. In comparison, the US college system felt like this giant game that you can sort of beat the system, do the least amount of work and graduate. And I kind of resonated with that.
Amazing. Well, let's go back a little bit. Take me through a day in your life when you were 12 years old. What was life like growing up?
When I was 12 years old, I probably spent half my day playing cricket. That was my first love. Indian people, Pakistani people, we love cricket.
Yeah.
Until I would say age 14, I thought that's what I wanted to do. I was a very competitive person. I still am a very competitive person, something I've channeled into other things. But sport was everything for me. I was would watch it all the time, would play all the time. I would kind of get through school. I was quite good at school until about 8th or 9th grade, and then it got really hard and I became less good.
Okay.
But yeah, sport was a big part of it. I grew up in a small sort of community with a lot of other Indian people, had a lot of close friends growing up, but competition was just a very, very big part that shaped me.
Yeah. Did you spend some time on the internet as well? That's what you end up doing later?
We first got a computer when I was pretty young, 8 or 9 years old. Internet happened, but my parents limited how much time I could spend on the computer, which in retrospect feels self-defeating.
Yeah.
I remember fighting with my parents in 8th grade, 9th grade, because I was I really want a laptop. It'd be so cool. They were like, no, go study or something. So I really liked playing with computers, but I didn't really have a ton of skills or anything. But it was always my favorite subject at school and all of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was your parents' relationship with money like? Did they teach you about investing and personal finances and stuff? Is that something you were thinking about when you were young, or?
Not a lot. I mean, I think we grew up, I would say, somewhere between middle class, but probably upper middle class by the time we got older. But my dad didn't grow up like that. So as a result, he always felt that he had to do the safe thing, get a job and so forth. So even when I was young, he always told me he kind of pushed me a little bit to go do my own thing. And a big part of that is I think he felt like he would have liked to do that, but with a young family, it felt irresponsible to.
Yeah.
So as a result, I think he kind of pushed me in that direction. I think if he could live his life over, he would probably have taken more risk. So he's like, you know what? You should go ahead and you should actually take that risk.
Yeah.
Sadly, my mom does not feel that way.
Oh. Wait, so your dad, it sounds like maybe he got married young and had a family kind of youngish, or?
Young by New York standards, perfectly normal, time by Indian standards, yeah.
Nice. And then he took a safe-ish job. What did
Correct. My parents have had corporate jobs their entire life. My dad's worked in general management for a while. My mom worked for British Airways for 20 years.
Nice.
So very kind of safe, conventional jobs. It's very different from, I would say, a lot of our generation people like us, where we feel this need to be defined by our work. They didn't really care. They went to the office, did what they had to, came back and never thought about work again, which there's a lot of benefits of. But yeah, it's a very different life.
Yeah. Nice. And it sounds, you're saying your mom's not as comfortable with the amount of risk.
Oh, my mom is terrified. A good example is I built a business in college where I was, building Facebook applications, making a lot of money for a 19 or 20-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
Stopped doing that, and I tried to figure out what's next. So I probably spent 2 years trying different things, and nothing was working. Everything I tried was failing.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad being like, don't worry, it'll work out. My mom's like, why don't you get a job at Facebook? They're hiring. And I remember just, my mom has always tried to be like, get me on a more conventional path, while my dad's like, just go, these things take time. Go start a company if you want to. It doesn't matter if it takes 3 years or 4 years or whatever.
Yeah. How did we go from 12-year-old who loves cricket and doesn't spend that much time on the internet to like 19-year-old who's making a bunch of money on Facebook?
So I would say I was always a hustler. I remember when I was 8 or 9 years old, I started a business ripping out like posters from magazines and selling it to my dad's friends. So there's always some part of my brain that was like, how do I build a business out of anything? So I was always very entrepreneurial. But again, moving to America is what kind of gave me that jump. When I was 18 years old after my freshman year, I was interning at Amazon, and it was, in retrospect, I was way too young because 18, you don't know anything. I was in Seattle. I was away from home. I was homesick. I didn't know a single person. But that coincided with the launch of the Facebook platform. And I had no evening activities. I hated my roommate. I didn't have a fake ID. I couldn't go out. I was like, what am I supposed to do? I'm 18 years old. And I started teaching myself how to build these Facebook applications for fun. And by the end of that summer, I started making $15-20 a day. And that changed everything, right? Then I'm like, I can do things on the internet and make money. Why ever work? Why ever get a job? Why ever do anything else? Yeah. And that sort of set me down this irreversible path.
Nice. What were some of those early apps that you built?
Again, this is a theme. The first app I built was a fantasy cricket application.
Amazing.
Then I realized the things that worked were actually quite silly. Like, we started creating personality quizzes, like answer these 7 questions and we'll tell you how good a lover you are, or answer like 11 questions, we'll tell you which friend's character you are. It was like a fascinating insight into human psychology, because you realize that people don't really care what the answer is. What we found is they repeatedly took the quiz till they got the answer they wanted, and then they shared that. So it was all these like fascinating insights. But yeah, those personality quizzes made a lot of money.
Wow. This is why you don't like tarot cards.
Yeah. In my mind, I've been on the other side, created this. I remember I once had this quiz called "What color is your aura?"
Oh, yes.
So people would answer all these questions, and I would be like, your color is red, you're a very passionate person, or like yellow, there's a cheerful disposition, black, like, no one knows the real person behind you. And the funny thing is, the way the answer was generated, it was a random number generator.
Yeah.
It was literally a random number generator, and they had millions of people who like swore by their results.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing with like horoscopes and astrology and all that stuff. Where like there's this new one now, human design.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
I feel like it's all the same. It's like really not based in reality, but people love to feel like it's their answer.
The funny thing is though, like in general, I don't believe in horoscopes, but there are times where I kind of sometimes grudgingly think, like, you know what, that is a little bit of a coincidence. So with that said, there's a limit, right? I know there's once a time in my career I overheard, I'm not going to out the people, one of our teams talking about who they should hire. And they were indexing for Virgo energy as part of the interview process. And I was like, this is not good. This is not good. We can't be doing this.
So this is like horoscope discrimination, basically.
Yeah, basically.
In the workplace.
It's not a protected class, but like I think it should be illegal.
Oh, it should be illegal.
It should be illegal.
Especially in New York. Yeah.
You can't control it.
No, yeah. Every year, my birthday, someone asks like, oh, your birthday. Oh, so you're a Taurus. And I'm like, I don't believe in horoscopes. And then they're like, that's such a Taurus thing to say.
Yeah, exactly, right?
And I'm like,
and then you got me.
Yeah.
I also recently learned there's not just one sign, there's multiple.
Yeah.
Like you can have like moon signs and stuff. And it blew my mind because someone was like, I can guess sun signs, I'll guess your sign. And they guessed 6 incorrect signs. Then I stopped them because at some point you're going to get lucky, and they were like, oh, it's probably your moon sign. Blew my mind.
Okay. So they always win.
Yeah.
And when you were young, you realized that, and so you made a bunch of money off of this.
It's only because I'm an Aquarius, really, when I think about
it. Correct. Yeah. Awesome. What was coming to America like?
Coming to America was tremendously exciting. a couple of years before that, I studied for a month and a half in Australia. So it was my second time fully being away from home.
Yeah.
Coming to America felt a lot easier than going to Australia. Australia is a little racist if people don't tell you that. The US, on the other hand, the West Coast was fine. I remember being surprised at how nerdy it was because in my mind, right, you see American culture. I'd watched American Pie. I'm like, college is going to be crazy. And I go to like an engineering school and I'm like, this is not what I expected. But again, as I said, like, I'm so grateful for everything the country has given me. The thing I appreciated the most about the US is it's one of the only places in the world where you are taken seriously as a young person.
Yeah.
So when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, I met a lot of people in Silicon Valley and no one was condescending to you because you were a child. If anything, they respected you more because of your youth. Compare that to India when I was, trying to like have a business meeting, like 19, 20 years old, and they were condescending. They were like, "Oh, where's your dad? Like, what does your dad do?" And so I think that part of the U.S. and Silicon Valley culture I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. And did you know anyone at all when you moved here? So just
did not know anyone in the U.S., but again, it was college, right? So it was a time when, like, the person I like met on my first night literally is one of my closest friends, and you start forming a community pretty early on. So.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
How did we go from Facebook apps? Did you graduate college, by the way?
I did graduate college. I almost dropped out at a couple of points. My mom gave me the emotional argument of like, beta, just go through it. How bad is it? How bad is it? So I found a path of least resistance out of college and graduated a little bit early. I graduated in 3.5 years while building the Facebook app business. Did that for about a year after graduation and then had my 2 years of nothing working.
Nice. What were those 2 years like? What did you do?
I thought it was fine. I mean, I tried a series of maybe 10 or 12 different ideas. And the way ideas would work is you would start working on something. It would be promising. It would be exciting. And then you'd keep working on it. And after a while, you wouldn't ever realize that it's not working as much as nothing amazing was happening. And slowly what would happen is you'd get distracted by a new thing. So it never was like, oh, this idea failed. It was more like I found something else more exciting. And I jumped between things for about 2 years until the first version of Teachable actually just started working in a way that every month was better than the last month for about 6 or 7 months, until which point I'm like this may be real.
Yeah. Did you have anyone you were talking to through it? Did you have like a co-founder, a collaborator?
I had multiple co-founders on different projects. It was not sort of one person. I tried probably working with 2 or 3 different people, a lot of stuff on my own. And in between there was a move from San Francisco to New York, which I think that helped a lot. I think at that point I started feeling stagnant, and the simple act of changing my physical location, I think really energized me.
Yeah. New York's great.
Mm-hmm. Especially at 23.
Yes. Awesome. What was it? So what was that first early version of Teachable that started working?
So the first version, and the lesson here is like ideas never go the way you think they will.
Yeah.
The first version was I saw this platform Udemy and I saw people making money selling courses. And again, I'm a hustler. I'm like, how can this benefit us? So what we did is I went to all these creators on YouTube and I said, can I take your content? You have to do nothing. I'll repurpose it, put it on Udemy and take a cut. And started working a little bit, but then we realized we actually don't need these YouTube creators. Why don't we make our own content? So that's when my buddy Conrad and we created a few courses on marketing and growth and all of these things. Started making maybe $2,000 a month. And then we're like, why are we giving Udemy 50%? And then I built the first version of what became Teachable for Conrad as my first customer. And then eventually we started offering to other people. And 6 months later, we're like, this is real business. People are selling $50,000 worth of courses every month. This is no longer like a hobby. We can actually go ahead and raise money.
Nice. Amazing. And then what did you, so you raised money and like took it further? How did you get,
Yeah. Then went to Silicon Valley, did the whole conventional fundraising round or whatever, which for people who don't know, generally for us was about 2.5 months of rejection. And again, it wasn't a rejection. It was 2.5 months of ghosting. Like you'd meet someone,
Really? Yeah.
it would go amazing, and then you wouldn't hear back.
Yeah.
Then
And this is even, you guys have like early signs of PMF, and
there were like some insulting, well, not insulting, maybe I'm being dramatic, but I remember like going to meet an investor and I was so excited. I was like prepared. I had all my material. And the investor is like basically shopping, and I'm like he's running an errand as I'm like talking to him, and it felt pretty disrespectful. But anyways, lots of that stuff. But eventually we got our first yes, and the rest of the round happened like 10 days later, which really just shows how much like people need one person to move, create some kind of scarcity, and the whole thing happened really fast. And since that point, like not intending to brag or anything, but since then fundraising was always easy. That was just the first round that was tricky.
Yeah. Nice. And what were some of the worst things? Was the shopping incident maybe the worst investor?
Shopping incident wasn't great. There were a lot of times where like you'd meet someone, you thought they'd imply they're basically in.
Yeah.
And then you never hear from them again.
And did you have any gut feeling for why? Were they just
at the time I was stupid. I believed what people said. Now I look at now for me to think a yes is a yes, there's like has to be a lot of signs. Then if they said something, I believed it. It was crazy.
Oh no, you're so naive.
Yeah, knew nothing about the world. Yeah. But yeah, there was a time an investor I thought we really got along with or whatever was going to say yes, was all good. Then he invited me to a party, which I thought meant he's in. But no, he literally was just like, oh, I thought you'd want to come to my party. I was like, I don't want to go to your party. I want you to invest.
So you went to the party?
I did, because I thought that's when he's going to tell us he's investing, but no.
And then he did at some point you realize
and at some point I just asked him, I was waiting, and then I was like, what's, he's like, no, we're not, we're waiting for more momentum. Or I'm like, why the fuck am I at this party? Yeah. So.
I know I promised you we're not talking about your personal life, so I will not do that. But there's so many analogies, that I feel like I could, my mind's but
yeah.
Super cool. And then at what point, how long did you work at Teachable before you started thinking about selling it, or how did that come?
Yeah, so we ran the company for about 6 years or so. But 6.5 years before. At no point was I specifically looking to sell the company, as much as was chatting with an investor we were talking to who brought it up as an idea. And I remember at the time, it was a little I was tired. It had been a while building the company, but it was still conflicting at first, where I was like, look, I've put everything into this company. Do I want to do it? But after spending some time weighing the pros and cons, finally decided to go ahead and do it, which in retrospect, I'm very glad I did.
Yeah. Was it, did you take the first offer you got? Did you run like a process?
We effectively took the first offer we got. So we found out it was this company in Brazil that was building what we're building, but just bigger and better.
Yeah.
So they set it up almost as a blind date. They're like, why don't you all go for dinner, see if you like each other, and take it from there. I really got along with the founders. The part that was my favorite thing there was both of the company was still run by the founders, which is powerful. And, it wasn't like a bunch of executives or whatever running the ship.
Yeah.
So once that happened, I realized we got along. All I did is I tried to ensure the price was fair. So instead of running a full competitive process, I sent out a few feelers. I told them what they were offering us. And as long as it was like an 80th percentile price, which I feel good it was, that was good enough. I think at the end of the day, finding people you want to work with is much more important than optimizing every last dollar.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like one of the discrepancies between the media and like real life in the founder circle is that the media loves to tell these stories of like founders who declined an acquisition offer and then they got became $1 billion company. But in reality,
if I legitimately believed that was an option, I would have. The reality is our business had reached an inflection point where we could keep growing, but for us to become a multi-billion-dollar company, we had to rebuild our product from scratch. And our team, including me, didn't know if we had the stamina for like an 18-month rebuild or something. So we just had to change things fundamentally in order to make that possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like actual founders kind of know that the best offer the first offer is
you always have a pretty good sense as a founder of how business is going to go. Like at any given point, at that point, I knew things were going to get hard. So it made sense.
Yeah. Nice. Mm-hmm. And then how old were you when you sold it?
I sold it a few weeks after my 31st birthday.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did your parents feel about that?
Parents were obviously very proud, though in those very specific days it happened, they were very worried because COVID was all over. This was like March 2020. My parents thought I was going to die because I opened a package that had the virus on it or something.
Yeah.
So it was a stressful time for everyone.
Yeah.
I couldn't, and again, the world's smallest, like people are like, oh, how did you celebrate it? I couldn't celebrate it because I was like physically locked inside my house for multiple months. But yeah, parents were and continue to be proud.
Amazing. And then you went and became an investor for a little while.
I spent about 9 months so I started investing during COVID. I started my first fund because I felt like I had infinite amounts of time. Thought I enjoyed it at the time. I really did enjoy it at the time.
Yeah.
Spent 9 months at the acquiring company, eventually transitioned off, and then spent some time basically having my Eat, Pray, Love era where I was traveling, running a fund, investing, which running a fund felt like a vacation compared to running a company.
Yeah. Actually, I have another question about Teachable. Like, what was you basically, maybe it sounds like you came at this like accidentally, but like you sort of got to see the creator economy take off. That must have been really cool.
It was fascinating, and I wish I could say that was our vision.
Yeah.
I think with startups, so often you're in the right place at the right time, and that's sort of how it went. We started out thinking we're building a platform for like educators, but in reality, the majority of our customers were creators, and we stumbled into it pretty much year after year.
Nice. Anything crazy that happened that like would surprise me?
One of the things people don't appreciate or expect is how much time we had to spend internally deciding what was allowable content or not.
Right.
Like, again, which is why I have so much sympathy for platforms like Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I remember we would have heated debates inside the company of like, it's so hard to draw a line of, what is okay, what is not. Like, there's a lot of like there's some courses that were just obviously bad. Like there's a course talking about why a certain race was superior to another race. It's not funny. That's bad. That you take down, right? That is like obvious. There was one course that was fascinating, but it is how like overcoming white supremacy. And I fought for
this
that.
This is like a regular day in your life.
Yeah, I fought for keeping that course on the platform. People are paying money because they have feelings of white supremacy that they want to get over it. But you can see why it's.
So this is for white people.
Yeah.
To be like, I should have. Okay.
So I was like, this is a good thing, but our team was like, no, this is really bad.
Yeah.
There was a lot of conversations about, like what is the line? Because we are a platform, we're not a marketplace. But like at a certain point, if something is truly bad, it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
But figuring that line out was something we debated for a long time.
Were there any legal repercussions, or was it just the team deciding what we're okay with?
Legal repercussions were clearer. Like nudity, like Stripe would kick us out. Like there were those were easy. The gray areas were not legal. The gray areas were opinions. And it's like, what is our responsibility as a platform?
Yeah.
And I don't think our responsibility is all the way there because, again, like you have to, as soon as you decide what speech is okay, that also gets dangerous. But yeah, there's no great answers.
Nice. Amazing. And you loved your time as an investor. Did you try to be nicer to people? I don't think you did, but
I was a fantastic investor.
Okay.
I think the thing that helped a lot is there's a big difference between investors that have never been founders and investors that have been founders. So my pitch to the companies that took money from me is like, look, I can help you with founder psychology type stuff. You don't have to be afraid to like talk to me about whatever's real. And I do think a lot of them did take me up on that. And I did become friends with a good number of those people.
Yeah. Did you find any similarities across like successful founders? Because you probably got to see like a more vulnerable side of founders that,
One of the silliest things that has a very strong correlation is, at least in our portfolio, which is 100 companies, the founders that have written a consistent investor update every month are substantially more likely to be successful. It's not perfect. Like we have some companies that are phenomenal that never write updates, but almost every company that has been consistent about that has typically done quite well, which is my advice to a lot of founders is like, if you're having a hard time raising money, write an update every month. Like this is one of those like fake it until you make it. Like that in turn will make people think you're quite organized. Like we wrote an update every month and we've always been a shit show and disorganized internally, but we created this illusion that we're fully on top of our stuff. So it's one of the easier things you can do as a founder to differentiate yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, from a founder's perspective, they're probably not writing an update because they don't like the update.
Correct. You're right. There's a selection bias, right? Like you feel bad when you're having a bad month and you don't want to like telegraph that. But I think that's
but like to a founder who's in that position, would you want them to just like gloss over the bad stuff, or would you want them to
I want you to lean into it. Like it makes me, what I don't like is when things are going bad and the founder's trying to gaslight you that everything's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd rather the opposite, where people are like, things are shit. We had a terrible month. Numbers are messed up. Everything is painful, but we're going to do this anyways. Like that builds faith. That builds trust.
Yeah.
I know I'm a founder. Like that happens like 1 out of 3 months, 1 out of 2 months. Like, that's normal.
Yeah.
But if I see an update where the worst thing is you read an update, and if it's like 95% words and no numbers, that's always a bad sign.
Okay. Cool. So just be like, hey guys, we had an awful month.
These are our numbers, and this is how I'm going to fix it. If you have any suggestions, I'd love to chat with you. Boom.
Yeah.
Easy.
Okay.
I say easy. I know it's hard. By the way. I'm not undermining the difficulty of like kind of facing it. Like when I have a bad month, it kind of sucks for me as well, but just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like a mental game.
100%.
As a founder. Yeah. Are there any other like pieces of wisdom you've seen about like founder psychology in terms of managing?
I think the other thing that surprised me in terms of it was a hard-won lesson was how to pitch my company. At first, I would pitch my startup by just telling people what it did, which seems obvious, right? You're a founder, you're used to like not being bullshit.
Yeah.
You're like, this is what my company does.
Yeah.
But I realized investors don't care about that. Investors want to hear the craziest, most fantastical version of what it could be so that one day they can see why it's worth tens of billions of dollars. So for Teachable, for instance, my original pitch was, I was like, oh, it's like Udemy, but like the courses are on your own website, and no one cared. But eventually we changed our pitch to how the future of all commerce is not people selling physical items, it's them sharing their knowledge, and we will power that knowledge economy, right? It's kind of bullshit. It doesn't describe what we do, but it's a much more effective pitch for raising venture money.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you noticed anything that like a lot of founders struggle with in silence? Because
all of it really, right? Like I think this is where having good support groups and stuff can be helpful. But I do think inherently it's quite hard from a psychology perspective because one, you're doing a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
But two, you have to show a very positive face all through it, especially to your team.
Yeah.
So like if things are going bad, you can't freak out because your team will freak out 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So you have to like freak out internally, quietly to yourself.
Yeah.
And tell your team everything is amazing and we're going to crush it anyways, while in turn trying, like you're balancing and juggling a lot of balls at once.
Yeah. What makes some people able to do that, whereas others just cave under the like, honestly, I couldn't handle being a venture-backed founder. I'll admit it. It's really hard. Yeah. It's tough. I personally found being a founder easier than being a CEO. Okay.
I found being a founder was still the thing that I enjoy doing, creating something where nothing exists.
Yeah.
Being a CEO, especially past like 100 people, I had this constant sense of like, one, I don't enjoy this. Like, this is not fun for me. And two, I'm also bad at this. There's other people that are better at this than me. And both like are reinforcing each other.
No.
And I had too much ego attached to like step away because I'm like, it's my company. What do you mean another CEO? But if at this point, if that were to happen again, I would absolutely step away.
Yeah. So you don't believe in like the founder mode thing? My sense is that it's hard, but you're still the best person to do it, typically as the founder.
I agree, but I personally struggle, especially at that size, to micromanage to that degree. Like, it's just not like enjoyable to me. There are a few things I care about, like, but to go so deep in the details, like I've never been a super detail-oriented person, and it just goes against my personality.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I've learned over the years is whether it's founders, whether it's investors, people with such dramatically different styles have been successful that you can't be prescriptive and say, this is the way you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the worst part of managing 100-person plus company?
You just have to look at people as resources, and it's like anti-human. It's like not how you you have to look at these as like chess pieces to be moved in a certain way. I think it's kind of dehumanizing, and you almost have to be a little bit sociopathic to be a truly like amazing CEO. Like when you think about like the truly sort of like legendary CEOs that come in, turn around, fire 60% of the company, whatever. Like that's a skill, by the way. I respect that. I'm not that. I never will be that. So that's a hard skill. But you look at that, you have to make really, really tough decisions. And I've struggled with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there like a particular time when you felt like you had to make a tough decision that you were like...
There's no one truly like bad time, but there were just like deaths by 1,000 paper cuts as you're scaling the company, and you're always finding people that you have to always hire above someone or let someone go, and like that never gets easier.
Yeah. Amazing. And then, so what made you decide to switch from investing to now building Carry?
The 2 years I spent traveling were fantastic. Like I went very deep into like, what is it that really drives me? What is it that makes me happy? And eventually I found I was pretty happy, but the one piece that was missing is investing didn't feel like meaningful work to me. And I missed it's almost a drug, but the feeling of like building something with a group of people where you have a common mission, you're all like care about the same thing. And nostalgia, right? Like nostalgia is kind of annoying, where as time passed, I only started remembering the good times. Like I forgot all the hard times, and my brain only started remembering like, oh, remember how fun it was? Remember this? And at a certain point, I started to miss that. And I started Carry when I was 32, 33. And I was like, I'm too young to be chilling on a beach doing nothing.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a competitive person, and this is my sport, and I want to go play.
Amazing. And then how did you decide on Carry's mission of helping businesses save on taxes?
So while selling Teachable, because it was a big acquisition, I could afford to hire lawyers and accountants and consultants to structure everything. But as an immigrant and as someone who did not know anything about the US, it was shocking to me how the tax code works. The tax code, a lot of us tend to be afraid of it. We're like, oh, it's such a mess and stuff. I think you can reframe that belief and think about all the complexity in it is honestly an opportunity. But without a guide to help you, figure out that opportunity, you can't actually benefit from it. So I knew if I started a company, I wanted the company to basically be that guide that could take all these opportunities in the tax code and productize it. So the idea was clear. For a while, I wasn't sure if I wanted to start a company, but I knew if I wanted to start a company, this is a problem that I found personally interesting. It does good. It's kind of fun. Again, you're like beating a system, which I enjoy. And it's been great.
Nice. And you've been doing that for 2 years now?
2 years.
Nice. What's been some of the highlights?
The team. For us, it was very important to be in person. So we're in the office every single day, which is slightly unconventional for a company today, but to me, it is hands down the best part. It's, meaningful relationships with the people I work with. Everyone on the team likes each other. We've had almost no voluntary turnover in our entire company's history. I'm sure it'll change. I'm probably jinxing it right now. Like this exact moment is going to be but it's been awesome to do that. And again, just building stuff from scratch. We now are close, 2,000 customers, like all of it, like it feels in some ways more meaningful the second time because it feels more intentional.
Yeah.
The first time we're just figuring it out.
Yeah. What are some of the common ways people don't like miss out on tax breaks and stuff, like lose money?
I think when you look at the tax code of a country, you can tell a lot by what the country values. The good thing about the US is the US really values entrepreneurship and people starting a business.
Yeah.
So the tax code is uniquely written for business owners. So there's lots of examples where two people, one is a full-time W-2 employee, one is a business owner. The business owner pays less for the same amount of income.
Nice. And so do you recommend to people to like start a business?
I think starting a business is very helpful for a couple of different reasons. One, it obviously you save money on taxes. But two, it takes people from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Typically, when you have a salary, that is sort of your total pool of money. But when you have a business, you realize you have two levers, right? You can either spend less or earn more. And as a business owner, you just realize how much you can honestly end up earning more. So from a mindset perspective too, I think it's quite powerful.
Nice. And so your 2,000 customers, are they usually mostly businesses or individuals?
They're mostly individual business owners. Our core product today is a one-person 401k plan. So it's a retirement plan for anyone who's self-employed. So the majority of people have one-person businesses, and we help them save for retirement, get a massive tax break, invest their retirement dollars, all of that.
So when you sold Teachable, you suddenly came into a lot of money. What was it like? Like what? Yeah.
I have the most boring answer because I don't think that much changed. I think the things that really, it's cliched, but the most valuable part I felt is the freedom to like walk away from things, even though the things could be very profitable. As an example, when I walked away from my job at the company that acquired me, I was walking away from probably 8 figures worth of equity.
Damn.
But I was like, who cares? All that changes is the number I go to the grave with. So I think that was the most useful / best part.
Oh, so you didn't do the whole acquisition thing where you work at the acquiring company for 4 years or whatever?
I did 9 months. Yeah. So having that capital or whatever, you realize you're more comfortable with it. The other thing that's been really nice is it's nothing crazy, but like just being able to do nice stuff for my family, like, go on vacations, travel much more with my parents. That's also been, I would say, the best part.
Yeah. And you're buying a cricket team now.
Yeah. I can't reveal yet. We're still finalizing some details, but...
Well, you can't reveal which team it is.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not the Pakistan team.
It's not.
Why?
I'm not opposed to it. I don't know much about the Pakistani Super League. I probably know more about it than you do, but still, I don't know that much.
You definitely know more about it. Last time I went to a Pakistan-India cricket match wearing blue. I didn't realize India was blue.
Wow,
I thought it was a neutral color, yeah.
Blue is not a neutral color.
So I thought India was orange, Pakistan was green.
No. Yeah.
And I was just wearing my normal yoga clothes.
Yeah, that would have not been popular.
I know, I felt so bad. But okay, so it's not the Pakistan cricket team.
It's not. I sadly cannot buy an international cricket team.
Okay, not yet.
Yeah.
One day. Amazing. Well, we'll do some lightning questions. I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. So in order to play a game well, you have to understand the rules. And so what are some of the rules of business that you feel like a lot of people don't understand? So many people try and they don't make it.
So these are my rules versus general rules, but personally, I think it's very important to very few things end up mattering, and distilling whatever you're doing to things that matter and doing it really, really fast, even if you accept a margin for error.
Yeah.
That's my style. So as an example, like I tell our team all the time, the only competitive advantage we have is speed. Like I think startups that iterate the most are most likely to win.
Yeah.
The opposite of this is it's very easy to get caught in what I call fake work. Fake work could be spending weeks thinking of the best business name, or spending like months trying to like come up with the best pitch, versus just furiously have I built something someone wants? Are they willing to pay me money? And if not, just doing that faster and faster until you find something.
Yeah. Have you ever seen somebody succeed that didn't follow that rule? Like that feels like a pretty common rule though.
Yeah. So I'll give you the counterpoint to this. There's a very successful company called Figma that took 4 years to launch their product.
Right.
So for every rule, there's the exception.
Yeah.
But most people are not Dylan Field, and you're likely not building Figma.
Yeah, that's also design. I feel like with a design
course.
company, it matters.
But for us, I wanted to launch a product in less than 2 months from day one. So a lot of these are my style, and I think they're good general rules, but there are exceptions for all of this.
Nice. If you were starting from scratch today, I mean, obviously you're doing carry, and that comes a little bit from your own experiences selling a company. But yeah, if you were like 20 years old today and you wanted to start building, what are some of the spaces that you would look into or that you think people should be looking at?
One of the things that kids today have that we never did is the tools are so much better. Like I still remember, this is going to just age me, but when I was first trying to play around with websites, we used Microsoft Front Page or whatever, like now you just have amazing tools for everything. The hard part becomes distribution. So what I would recommend like a smart, ambitious person do is figure out their niche and then go super hard on distribution. If you can build an audience of people that ultimately trust you, they trust your judgment, they trust your decisions, and you start kind of growing that audience, you can then launch any product to them. So again, maybe this is my bias running Teachable, but I've just seen like distribution trumps everything. So I would recommend people start with distribution, build that like core group of people that just love everything you do, and then build a product.
Okay. So almost like focus more on the media company rather than the tech venture-backed thing.
And again, it varies, right? If you're interested in like nuclear power, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But for the person that's just like smart, ambitious, doesn't exactly know where to get started, I think that could be a way that takes a lot of risk out of it.
How do you think AI is going to change content creation?
Not the AI person, but
you're not, but everyone's the AI person now.
It's going to basically just reduce the marginal cost of creating additional content to almost zero.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to, in my opinion, get to a point where we're flooded with even more content than we are today, like substantially more. And then potentially have like, when the pendulum swings a certain way, it swings back the other way, where we start to really, really value human-made content even more afterwards.
Yeah.
But I think, that's like 2 steps away from where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of connects with what you were saying earlier, that the person who can connect like their story with their audience.
We're not that far away from a world where video content is exactly as easy to create as text content. We're close. Like right now, video content still seems a little jank on AI, but it's a matter of time.
I think it's safe to say that everybody wants to be rich, but very few people actually make it. And I know there's logistical things like visas and health, but there's also a lot of mindset stuff that I think gets in people's ways. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen that separate people who make it from the ones who don't?
It's a very hard question to answer because just in life, I feel so fortunate and lucky that it's very hard to be reductive and say it's because of this mindset.
I'm not saying you specifically, but like you've seen so many, like you've also been an investor. You've seen a lot of founders who've succeeded, but also a lot who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, again, access to opportunity is a really big thing. Like I joke about this all the time, but there's a lot of truth in it where like if we opened up immigration, things would be different because back home, I'm not even that smart. So, right, like you let in more people. I think access to opportunity is a really, really important thing. The other thing is, and I saw this a little bit where I went to school. I went to Berkeley. A lot of kids were first generation immigrants. And as a result, they chose safe paths in life, which again makes sense, right? If you're the first person to go to college, getting a strong job at like, I don't know, Oracle or Cisco or some kind of like unsexy, but like pays a good amount of money in the Bay Area. That was the default compared to, I think you went to Stanford. Kids at Stanford came from money and privilege and all of that, but as a result, chose the riskier path more often. So I'm not saying one way or another, but when you look at like outlier success, typically it's people from the latter group. We were hosting a conference recently and Sam Parr was talking about something he's observed with the most successful people he's met. The thing that made them really successful was not their first success. They all have an equivalent of, a base hit where, like for me, it was probably the Facebook applications. I made enough money there that I could go ahead and take more risk.
Yeah.
But a lot of times the people that are really, really successful or have that one massive thing that makes them super wealthy, it's not their first thing. They had like a smaller thing before that they built on top of. So yeah, again, these are just trends. I think it varies a lot, but yeah.
Nice. Amazing. If you could give any advice to 12-year-old Ankur, what would it be?
Get better at cricket so you don't have to build startups.
Really?
I'm kidding. But this is just like, I think there's a small part of every dude, no matter how successful, that would trade it all to play sport for a living.
Yeah.
And that's still a facetious answer. In general, if I look back now to then, I would say I'm pretty happy with how life has turned out. And I don't know, I would tell myself to like probably think less about the future and just kind of, like silly things, right? Like when you're 12, you don't realize it, but just the last 4 years you spend with your parents every single day, like, family, all that stuff, I think is stuff I spend more time thinking about.
Nice. I don't think we got into this, but like, how did you go from playing cricket to eventually, did you try to take it seriously?
So I played internationally for Oman. I played at the under 17 level, and
Nice.
I was very good for the country I was in. But as soon as we went for a talent competition to India, I was like, okay, that's actually good. There's just like, it's like being good at cricket. Actually, now America is good, but it's like being very good at a sport where in a country where it's a minority sport. So in reality, I just, didn't have the right infrastructure, all of that.
Nice. Amazing. Well, I have a little closing ritual. This is a magic crystal ball, and you can hold it and make any wish that you want, and you'll get it.
Any wish?
Yeah, you can ask for anything you want.
Sweet.
You don't have to tell us.
I'm not intending to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you can if you want to, but yeah.
To.
Okay,
right,
great.
Sweet. Is this what the kids call manifestation?
Mm-hmm.
All right, sweet. All right, let's see. I will come back in 6 months and let you know
Please.
if I've successfully manifested. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here.